Welcome, I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, residents of Oshogbo count their losses after torrential rains hammer the Osun state capital, leaving many people trapped in their homes. National Space Research and Development Agency investigates tremor in Jaba, local government area of Kaduna State, blames occurrence on passive sources. Resident doctors gear up for another industrial action, issue federal government 16-day ultimatum to address all challenges in the nation's health institutions. An African Union wades into Gabon's electoral crisis, pledges to send observers to investigate complaints lodged by the opposition.
And on business news tonight, Nigeria set to export Kwaibo crude grade for the first time 3 months after ExxonMobil declared force majeure.
And on sports news tonight, Nigeria's gold medal haul continues at the 2016 Paralympics. Josephine Oji wins Team Nigeria's 8th gold medal.
And from Abuja, I am Ibrahim Adra. Civil society groups challenge federal lawmakers over status of petroleum industry bill and its modifications over 12 years. Demand more transparency from government.
Residents of Oshogbo, the Osun state capital, are still counting their losses over heavy rains which lasted for over 3 hours on Tuesday and had killed one person and destroyed property worth millions of naira. Governor Rauf Aregbesola has visited affected communities and gave the residents the assurance that efforts are being made to clear waterways to prevent a recurrence.
At the home of late Elder Ebenezer Labode, members of his family and sympathizers gather in mourning. He's the only recorded victim of the flood who ransacked Oshogbo, the Osun state capital, on Tuesday the 13th.
The fire service, they tried. The civil defense, they tried, but they couldn't get the thing out. We had to go for these local people, the Hausas. We went for the Hausas later. They did it till midnight. They couldn't retrieve the corpse.
For the community, this is the collective loss, as what was meant to be a restful holiday has turned out to be a nightmare for all. The torrent has led bitter stories of submerged houses, churches, shops, and vehicles. This pastor, whose church was greatly affected, sees the event as an act of God and says support from the government is needed at this time.
We are not happy at all. Not my very self alone, but all church members. We are not blaming the government. And nobody can stop the rain. But if government can come to our aid to assist us in any way they can.
As residents scoop water from their stores, there is an appeal to the government to dredge the canals, believed to be the cause of the flood.
The problem of this place is Rasco, that Rasco bridge. The bridge is too low. The government should help us to break that bridge down, then carry it up, just like that of Alekwodo or that of Ajegun Leon. It's over, and create a very good gutter here. That's all we needed.
And the presence of the state governor is a sign that there will be some sort of relief plan for the community.
We have been quite committed to ensuring absence of this calamity. Since the advent of administration, we have been regularly desilting the waterways on an annual basis. Yes, NIMET had alerted us to the possibility of this, but considering our efforts at the flooding, the state, not just Oshogbo, the state, we never expected it to have this devastating effect.
As the community await the hand of comfort from the authorities, there are fears that if the downpour continues and nothing is done urgently, the story will be a lot more worse than it already is.
The National Space Research and Development Agency has attributed the cause of the recent tremor in Jaba local government area in Kaduna State to passive sources. The spokesperson of the agency, Dr. Felix Ali, explains the specific nature of the source will be confirmed after investigations are completed. Dr. Ali confirmed that the impact of the tremor was felt in Kwi, Nok, Sanba and Chori communities. The space agency appealed to residents of the affected communities to remain calm and gave the assurance that its findings will be made public. Now, the African Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions is calling for the implementation of regulations for environmental protection across the continent. This follows the successful completion of a cooperative environment audit on the drying up of the Lake Chad by the institution at a meeting in Abuja. Our correspondent Omelogo Nnadi reports.
This is a meeting of environmental audit specialists from across Africa in the federal capital of Nigeria, Abuja. The focus of discussions by representatives of about 54 Supreme Audit institutions here is a healthy and sustainable environment in Africa and the role of both the citizens and government, especially towards ensuring implementation of multilateral agreements on environment arising from environmental audits.
Environmental auditing is an essential component of sustainable development, environmental management, as it provides the mechanism for allowing us to know what has gone wrong over time and highlights the need for urgent policy action.
Good governance is important in ensuring that commitment taken in the area of environmental protection and sustainable development produce credible results.
The Supreme Audit Institutions of the Lake Chad Basin Commission member countries recently concluded an environmental audit on the drying up of Lake Chad with recommendations made. But implementation remains a cog in the wheel of progress.
We realize that there is no proper environmental impact assessment. You have people who are doing different kinds of activities and there's no control. There's no monitoring. So definitely some of the policies adopted by government are not being properly monitored and implemented. So there's need for that to be reassessed and for proper implementation.
Talks are already ongoing for the cooperative environmental audit project on Niger River by the Niger Basin Authority and the Supreme Audit Institutions of 9 member countries. An environmental roadmap for service delivery, sustainability needs, performance requirements and legislation are expected to follow. Omelogo Nnadi, Channels Television News.
To health now, resident doctors in the country appear set for another showdown with the federal government as they've given them up till September the 30th to address all issues concerning the nation's health institutions. This formed part of the outcome of the 36th Annual General Meeting and Scientific Conference of the National Association of Resident Doctors of Nigeria, which held in Enugu State, southeast Nigeria. The medical practitioners are demanding the government's urgent intervention in the areas of infectious disease control, welfare of doctors, health workers and hospital infrastructure.
Increase the campaign on infectious disease control. This is important because people need to live. So we are going to pay attention to campaign for improved accessibility to healthcare delivery in Nigeria through ensuring and insisting that the National Health Act is fully implemented, because we feel that there is ineptitude of the government mechanism that is supposed to be responsible for this eradication, for this awareness, for this control of these infectious diseases. We also observe the deplorable conditions of remuneration of our members in state health institutions, with most having to endure many months without salaries, with others having been confined to irregular emoluments of varying percentages, even in the present adverse economic conditions in the country.
Joining me to discuss this issue now is the President of the Association of Resident Doctors at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, Dr. Afolabi Akinkunmi. Thank you so much for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
You were at that meeting and there are a number of concerns that you have. But can you tell us at this point what's your strongest reason for giving this 16-day ultimatum?
Okay, we had our National Executive Council meeting at Enugu at the City Park Hotel, and where we discussed about issues that affect members. And first is the remuneration injustice, in which we are being paid percentages of salaries in the various centers, while other health workers are getting full salaries. And we also discussed about the renewed surge of Lassa fever cases and polio cases in the country. And we felt there should be much more work needs to be done as regards infection control.
Speaking of infection control, looking at the statement that was released after the meeting, you had said that the resurgence of polio and Lassa fever is as a result of failure on the part of the nation's disease control unit. So you're saying it could have been avoided?
What we are trying to say is that we need a more efficient infectious control disease unit to overcome that. I want to recall that before we have been declared polio free, and now that we are now having a resurgence, so probably we need much more efficient infectious disease control units.
What is the status of that unit at the moment?
Recently the government changed the head of the agencies, and as we speak, I don't have the facts as regards the state now. Okay.
Now you're looking at a 2-week ultimatum you've given the government. Do you think all the issues that you've mentioned right now, funding, hospital infrastructure, can be resolved in that time? Or are you hoping for dialogue? What are you actually hoping for?
We are actually been dialoguing for a very long time. This issue of remuneration injustice have lasted since January 2014, and we've been on it since then. Recently, you might recall that we embarked on a warning strike and indefinite strike in June, which under the directive of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, we had negotiations and we had the resolutions. And of course, it's a breakdown of such negotiations that has led to this ultimatum. And in fact, it's not just September 30. What we are saying is that at the end of September, by the time we get September salaries, if we don't get it in full, we might be forced to start another industrial strike action. And actually, some chief executives are actually implementing, while some are not. So it's not about everybody not implementing. So we have about 52 federal teaching hospitals in the country, while some are implementing, some are not. And we hope that with genuine commitment from the Federal Ministry of Health, all the other chief executives also are going to fall in line and they're going to start implementing.
So what is the status of the talks that you have had now? Usually when you have talks, they break down, you threaten to go on strike, and then we see the cycle all over again. So is this what's going to happen again, or where are we now?
As of now, we are yet to resume talks. But of course, I expect that in the coming days, the talks are going to resume. And of course, with resumption of talks, I feel that issues are going to be resolved. For me, I think it has to be the chief executives. The circulars are there. Once they just implement according to extant circulars, all these issues are going to be resolved. And also some of our colleagues in the state teaching hospitals are also going through very hard times. And we were also looking at probably getting a bailout fund from the federal government for them so as to relieve them.
Bearing in mind that we're in a recession, bearing in mind that that's where we are right now, what is the most important area that you think funding should go into beyond a basket of needs?
Even though we're in the period of economic recession, but health is wealth. Of course, we know our indices. We have one of the poorest indices in the world. So, for me, I believe we need to work on it, and probably when we improve funding, we improve access to healthcare through the National Health Insurance Scheme, and we also ensure that the welfare of health workers are also well taken care of. These are things that I know that are going to improve the health indices in the country.
All right, Dr. Afolabi Akinkumu, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on the news at 10 tonight.
Thank you very much.
In part 2, after the break, work resumes across the country after the long weekend, including the 2-day Eid al-Kabir public holiday. That's in a moment. Please join us.